Hi there. We've seen in our last blog how to incrementally load data from a source to a destination using SSIS as a tool. But the problem is when we've used SSIS, what we saw is we're trying to load the data and search for the changes from the source to the destination. We actually load the complete data at source, which means if we have 1 million records, we will be looking up those 1 million and then sync up our source with the destination or the target. What about loading only or looking up only the data which has changed? So that is what we will be taking a look with this option and solution here in this blog. The blog uses the feature of change tracking, which is there in SQL Server 2008, and this is not a tutorial on change tracking but a tutorial on using change tracking and then loading a data incrementally. So this is a solution which I have built using change tracking as its backbone support for change tracking and then incrementally loading the data from a source to a destination. So before I start, what I have here, I'll just try to one-on-one with the things that I have put together for this session. I have a database with the name change tracking, and this will act as a source for my demo. So this is on an instance of SQL Server, and in the change tracking database I have created a simple customer table. Now remember, change tracking needs to have a primary key on the table from which we are trying to track a change. Change tracking on the whole works on a synchronous fashion, which means it tries to get the changes or give you the last version of the changed record, and also for all the DMLs that happen, that is for an insert, delete and update, it will try to track down the change, what was the operation that happened, and also what is the last or the net change that has happened. And this will be done synchronously, I mean at the same time and instance that the change happens or the DML is fired. So this is done from the backend, and it's an inbuilt feature in SQL Server 2008 which Microsoft ships, and there is no LSN logging or there is no delay in the tracking. So basically it's at the very instance of time, and that is why it is a synchronous change or synchronous tracking mechanism, unlike CDC that we'll see in our next session. So change data capture is an asynchronous mechanism of tracking change, while change tracking is a synchronous one. Considering this as an example, let's try to take a look at the customer table that we have built, and then in this database, the database change tracking would act as a source for my current demonstration. Next I have here is I have created a customer CT target, that is change tracking target table, which would act and it's similar in the schema of my source table, and I have kept this on a different instance and a target database. So this would act as a hypothetical production table which I would want to sync with. So this could be considered as my production table, while the customer table on the change tracking could be a staging one, and we would try to sync them up with our change tracking mechanism. Now I already have these tables created. Next, let's try to take a look at how we can enable it. Before I go on to the SQL command, first of all you need to enable change tracking, you need to go right click on your database, go on the properties, and then you would see a change tracking option. You would have to enable change tracking at a database level, after which only you can enable that on the table level. So you can see there is a change tracking tab, and currently it is enabled. So basically this would be disabled or false. Let's try to take a look at any other database. So if you take a look, it would be disabled, and the rest of the configurations are simple. I mean, it asks for the retention period about which the data would be retained up to, and the auto cleanup option, which means it could clean up on its own. SQL Server gives you the liberty to clean, as well as it would provide you the option to clean up by itself. Next, that is at the database level. Next, what we see here is at the table level. So again, if you click on the table and then go on the properties, similarly you would see a change tracking option, which again needs to be enabled, after which you would be able to implement change tracking on a table level. So again, you have a change tracking option, and which is set to false by default, and then when you start to enable it, it will ask if you want to track the updated columns also. So it would also track down or audit your updated columns or your updates. Next, so let's try to enable this. So before I move ahead, these are the commands to disable the change at the table level. If you want to disable it, this would be your command, and at also the database level. So I've disabled it. Now let's try to enable these first on the database level. I keep the auto cleanup option to myself, so I do not I want to take the liberty of cleaning up the database or the change tracking on my own and not depend upon SQL Server as such. So I enable the database first, and then I move on and enable the change tracking on my customer table. That's all. And then what we are trying to do here is we are going to use SSIS as such, which would perform the sync up, incremental data sync up, using the change tracking. So I have implemented that. Now by default, I have segregated this SSIS package into two sections, that is the data cleanup and data sync up. So the first is the data sync up, and the next one is the data cleanup. So in the data cleanup, it's nothing but we are simply trying to disable. It's a quick way of resetting your change tracking. It will automatically clean up everything and then build it fresh. So I'm just trying to disable it and then again enable it quickly. That's all that this does. But what I have done here is through expressions. If you see this, the disable option on this task, I have used the expression option, that is disable where is cleanup disabled. So what I have done here is basically I have mapped the enable option of this via a flag. That's a boolean flag. So it's a variable which says would you like to disable the cleanup, and by default it's true. The moment we want to clean that up, if we could set this to false, and the cleanup would happen for us. So maybe twice or once in 2 days we would want to set this flag up. That could be again configured from a table. So I leave that option to you, and what I do here is I just go on to my data sync portion. So for the data sync portion, what we have here is I have created a stored procedure first, and then I have done a couple of things. But before I jump into the details that I have done, I would like to show what is happening in the background. So let me try to insert two records. Since we've already enabled change tracking, let's go and insert two records into a customer table. So I have inserted two records, and my change or my production table is currently empty, and I need to get this data synced up from my production. So quickly, just to tell you what change tracking does here is this is a customer table, and this is the command that you would issue to know the change that has happened. So if you take a look, it gives you an option, it creates a version, and it says the command I means there has been an insert for customer IDs 1 and 2. It simply tracks the primary key where the changes happen. So now if you see, we have got the version. That can be tracked, and each time there is a change on the record, it creates a new version out of that record. And we know the operation, and we know the primary key on which the operation happened. So we know what is the change that has happened. Now we need to so how we sync this up completely. Let's run this package. Right, so if you take a look now at our target, what we see here is we have two records inserted into our destination or our production table, and the production table looks completely synced up. Now what I do here is the next command that I do, let me try to delete something, and then maybe that's a delete that has happened. So I've deleted customer ID 2, So there is only one record that I have here, and my production looks to have two records. So let's try to sync this again and see how my SSIS is helpful in syncing that with the help of change tracking. uh, Perfect. Now if we take a look at our target, there is only one record, so perfectly this is syncing our destination up. Now if I go ahead and see at my change tracking table, I have an insert and a delete that has happened. uh, that's okay for me. Now what I do here is I perform an insert, update and delete. So all the three, I'm inserting another record, I'm updating the record ID maybe 1, and then since I have one record, okay, let me just issue an update and an insert. That should be good with me. uh, cool. So I've updated and inserted a record. So my customer table currently looks again to have two records. Let's sync this up. And now if we go ahead and check our production table, we again have the two records. Now what is going on in the background? How are we able to do all these operations perfectly fine? Let's try to check what we have under our hood. Okay, cool. So what I have done here is, let's try to study the SSIS package step by step. First of all, I have created a stored procedure. What this stored procedure looks like is, I have created a master a change tracking table. The change tracking table looks like, I have created a change tracking table with an identity ID, then there is a customer ID, there is a change version, and then there is a flag that I have produced or declared. This flag is set to a default value of 0, and there is a constraint that I have declared on this flag, is that this flag can accept or have only 3 possible values, which means it should have ones, a 2 and a 0. So the reason is, I mean to say that a flag having as value 0 means it is not processed or yet, or it is to be processed. 1 means it's processing in progress, and 2 means the data has been synced up and the processing is complete for that particular record. Now let me go ahead and show you what I have in this change tracking table. I have actually 3 records for 3 different customer IDs, and there is a change versions that has been associated, and the data sync up is complete. So if I were to insert a new record and then run this package, I would actually have one more entry into this table, and the data sync up would be a 0. So to say so, what I have here is, if I insert another record, say a record of 4, and let me call it Smith. Cool. I have now my customer table has a 4th record, and now if I actually go ahead and run my stored proc, let's see what we have here. In this, because of this, the stored proc issues the inserts into my change tracking or the audit table. So the change tracking actually gets one more record for a customer ID 4, and the data is not yet synced up. So this means that the data is the flag is being a 0, which means the data needs to be synced up, and that is the step 1 for my operation. So what the next thing that this package does, it updates our data sync to value 1. So if you see here, if I may, I am just issuing an update here for the change tracking table, and that means the SSIS package is actually processing this record for data sync up. So that's about this record. But what is going on in the stored procedure? Let's try to take a look at the stored procedure now. So if we take a look at the stored procedure, okay, so the stored procedure is a pretty simple one. It first tries to check if we have any entry into the change tracking table, or it's a fresh one. If we don't have an entry and this is going to be the first entry, it simply runs the query and gets the first version of everything that it has. So it tries to fetch all these four records that has been changed so far, and this would be the insert into the change tracking table. Else, if we actually have some records, it is going to issue an update and an insert. So update should be for a newer value. So the update would look something like this. It simply updates the existing change tracking table with the flag of data synced to be 0, and it also updates the change version, because each time if you see the thing that changed is the change version column. So it updates from the change table on the customer ID, and if the version has changed, it updates the version, and also it sets the is data synced to be 0. So this is for an update or a delete or anything which is already existing in the change tracking table. If the data doesn't exist in the change tracking table and there is a fresh insert that has happened, it actually left outer joins the table and then inserts the data for anything new that is already there. So it inserts. So that is about it that this procedure does, and it inserts fresh records as well as the changed ones on the basis of the versions. So that's very simple, in terms of implementation. Now, as we've seen, let's move on what we do in the next portion. So the next portion is actually syncing up the inserts and the updates. So it is taking the change tracking table. First of all, it joins the change tracking table for the is data synced flag 1, which means the ones which have been chosen for processing. So if we take a look here, what we have currently, we have, I think, one record pending for processing. So it is actually one insert that is there which is pending for processing. So this query returns us one record, and then it actually uses our target database or the target table, that is the customer target table, and then we try to merge on a left outer join. So we try to look which is the record that is not there. It's a simple merge on the left outer join, and just to inform, the sort is on the customer ID. We need to do this so that we can use the merge transformation. Next, what we do is we conditionally split the data on the customer ID destination. So if we have, we call this, if we have the customer ID destination as a new one, in here we have actually renamed everything to be able to identify them. So if we have any new entries, we would have on a left outer join, we would get the customer ID as nulls. So that goes to say that this is an insert. For an update, what we do here is we simply try to look for any changed column data. So if you see here, it's a null handling that I have done here, similar to my SSIS that I had done. I am simply trying to null handle the data and at the same time look for if the column data has changed, and if it has, I would have to put an update. So that's an update. So for inserts, it's a blind insert. It's a simple insert onto the target table, and then there is an update. So for update, we are using the target connection, and then we are trying to update everything based on the basis of the customer ID. So that's all, and the mapping is as simple for all the things that we are trying to update. We are using the customer ID. So if you see here, we are using the customer ID for source, and then we are updating everything. That's about it. So let's try to run this. This would result in an insert of our problem. So this would, currently we were having, in the target we should see the 4 also. So now there has been an insert. So if we go here and see, there was one record which was actually inserted. There was nothing for an update, so nothing happened. Okay, so that is for an update. That is for an insert and update. Next we move on to delete. So if you look at the delete, what we do here is, if I mark everything as synced up. Okay, to explain our deletes, let me delete something. That would be a better way of explaining. what I do here is my current customer table looks like this. Let me release something with 1 and F5. That's all. So execute this task. Perfect. So now my data is ready and is in. If we take a look at the change tracking table, we should have one record for is data to be synced. That is for customer ID 1, which means that should be deleted from my target. So my target should not have the customer ID 1 now. Now let's try to take a look what I have here in the TFT delete sync task. I am using the source, that is I am using the change tracking table as my source, and I'm trying to take a look what I have for a delete. I'm sorry, I have to execute it on my source. So I have customer ID 1, which is in the change tracking table and is flagged for processing. So that's all I select from, and then I try to look up actually onto my destination or my target. So this is my target where I'm trying to look up this data, customer ID 1, on the ID, and then I'm fetching the customer ID for destination. That's all I do here. So this is a simple lookup, and for the matched output, I mean it's a kind of an inner join that I'm doing between the change tracking table with the customer underscore CT targets table. So now this is for the matched output. I sort it up on the customer ID destination in the ascending order, and then I use the source customer to do a left outer join. That's all I'm doing. I'm trying to do a left outer join again. So there's an inner join with the change tracking table with the target table, and then there is a left outer join for the results with the source one. So here in the merge, if you see, there's a left outer join with the customer ID destination with the source, and since we would not have, since the data has been deleted from the source, we would get a null. So we obviously next thing would be we try to do a conditional split on the nulls for the customer ID, and then we use a command to remove the records, so from the customer target table. So and we map the customer destination ID and then simply delete it. That's all that this task does. Let's execute this. See, we got one row, and the source returned two rows, but in the left outer join it was only one row that was returned, and finally our target table does not have a one customer ID. So it deletes and syncs this up. That's all, and then at the end of it, what we do here is we update the flag for all one bunches to 2. So our data sync up is complete. So if we take a look at our change tracking table, what we see here in this is everything for the data sync up is complete. So since we have not updated this, I mean we did not execute this task, let's execute this, and our data sync up is complete. That's all that this does. And now I have explained this, what we have done in the background and how we have used change tracking. Now if we want to clean up everything that has happened, maybe once in 2 days, if you want, what you do here is we simply set this value to false and execute our package. Since we have nothing pending, even if it does, it's simply going to reset everything. So now our entire thing has been reset, and again if we start change tracking running again, we would get our changes. So basically it would help us out, in cleaning up things in a configurable fashion. I would advise you to clean up change tracking on your own rather than depending upon the SQL Server, because end of the day we should be able to control the changes and also sync that, have the liberty to sync them up. So this was a quick explanation of incremental loads. The advantage with this approach is we are actually only tracking down and syncing up the change data. We are not actually using the complete data for looking up at source. The source becomes very small. If you have 1 million records and the change is in only 25,000, you're actually loading those 25,000 and then syncing them up. So this reduces the load relatively, and it's really helpful. So that was the session on change tracking. It's a very good feature, I would suggest, and a very lightweight process too. The next session would be on change data capture and how we can use change data capture, what are the advantages and what are the better offs and trade-offs for that particular approach for incremental data sync up. Thank you friends, see you.